کردن. سپاسگزاریم و گرچه یک ذره وقت به خاطر جلوگیری از ضایعی و دوستانی که زبان فارسی سخنرانی دارند، اونها به طور زنده دوستایی که در پهلوی مهمانان خارجی قرار گرفتن به اونها تشریح میکنن و برگردان میکنن به زبان انگلیسی، هلندی و یا زبان جرمنی. در این بخش برنامه مهمان خارجی داریم، کرستوفر ديوس، مسوول رسانه و روابط خارجی فدراسیون جهانی و بنیانگذار قلب آسیا و مرکز معلومات و خدمات افغانستان هستند که میخواهیم شد پشت گویا قرار بگیرم و صحبت‌های با شما داشته باشم. Now I would like to invite Mr. Christopher to the microphone, please. Mr. Christopher.
My first meeting that I went to was actually in September. Maybe some of you know there's often an important meeting in September for people of your nationality to remember a person whose name it is difficult for me to say without getting very emotional, the national hero Ahmed Shah Massoud. On that occasion, Mr. Massoud Khalili was speaking about him, and he went on and on and on and on and on. Afterwards he apologized. He said that everybody wanted me to speak because I was talking about Massoud. But it was okay for me because I felt like a little baby in a bathtub of warm water being bathed by Mr. Khalili's, because he's got a lovely voice. He's a poet, as you know, so it was okay. I hope it's all right to talk about personal things. I was told on the way there are going to be many politicians here, so you have to behave yourself and talk about politics. But politics is only one part of life. I would like to say I'm very happy to see these ladies here, and I don't say just because you're pretty, but because women make up more than 50% of the population, and we need more women represented. Actually, the chief of UPF, Universal Peace Federation, is actually a woman, Mrs. Johanni. Her husband and her formed it, but he died. He went to the spirit world, and we believe she's still working with her, and she is the representative on the earth. So we need more women. A famous English woman died fairly recently. Maybe you've heard of Mrs. Thatcher, a very strong woman. She was almost as strong as Mr. Massoud against communism, but in real life, as I believe was Massoud, she was a very kind person. I've heard quite a lot about Massoud, and I'm so impressed by his kind treatment of his enemies. To me, he was a good Christian. You might be surprised to hear me say that. My connections with your country are all rather painful in some ways. Firstly, a good friend of mine, Lee Shapiro, was killed when he was making a documentary about the problem of communism in Afghanistan. And I was very touched by the death of Massoud. Also, I have a very good friend who was not from Afghanistan, but she had many good Afghanistan friends. She was actually from Iran. She who's from Persia. And she phoned me a couple of years ago and said, Christopher, I just want to tell you I'm going to die soon. I have brain cancer. I want to thank you before I die for your friendship. Why do I tell this story? Because this is how I feel about your country. I don't know why, but that is it. Many of you have come a long way, and I've come quite a long way, and I've many things to do. So I want to first say congratulations to my friends for this activity, but I hope and I think we are not here just to have a nice time. I think we are also here to talk seriously about situations that exist in the world. I'm really worried about what is going to happen in your country next year. America has failed in a great way in Korea in the past, it failed in Vietnam, and I'm really worried about what is going to happen in 2014 when America leaves. So we are in a very serious situation. Many people think the biggest problem today is in the Middle East, between Israel and the Arab world. Other people say the problem is between the Muslims, between the Shia in Iran and the Sunni in Saudi Arabia. But I think the biggest problem is within your country. There is a big problem which is usually not talked about, and you try to, in a very good way, get over the ethnic problem between the differences. Even I can learn from other people. It takes me many years to realize that, but at last I do. And so, in the Bible we hear about Cain and Abel, or you talk about Abel and Abel, I believe. Who is Cain and who is Abel? Who is Abel and who is Abel in Afghanistan? The Persian speakers or the Pashto? I have my opinions, but that is not important. What is important, though, is one, that each person must be able to defend himself or herself about aggression from the other, and at the same time, he or she must be able to love the other. If we cannot protect ourselves, and if we cannot love each other, then there is no future for us in Europe or in your country. And so human rights are very, very important, but of course human rights were not very significant when the Chinese were protesting in Tiananmen Square. Gandhi was only able to be successful in India because the British had a certain civilized attitude. Martin Luther King could only be successful in America because the Americans had a certain civilized attitude. And actually, of course, Gandhi and Martin Luther King both got killed. But still, progress was made. But human rights are so important that the whole culture needs to be developed. So I believe, one, your country needs to be aware and not rely on the Americans or the Europeans or anybody. If they help, great, but don't depend on it. In Holland, they're very clear, more than in Britain. This is part of the religious tradition here. Responsibility starts with me, and this is what has to happen. Dare I say it, I'm a foreigner, I'm sorry, but that's what has to happen in your country. We need to be able to tell the truth, to talk about the differences between the different cultures, the different ethnic groups, to talk about problems in the home when women get beaten by men. These need to be talked about, not to point the finger, not to kick anybody. There would be enough people being kicked, but to say, look, it's a problem, we want to solve it because we want peace. Peace and freedom go together. And as regards human rights, of course, physical things are important. But actually, in a way, nobody has any human rights. The only rights are if somebody else gives you those rights. You can appeal, but if the person has no heart, he won't care for you. But while it is important that people have food and clothing and a place to live, it is also important that people be respected. And that is something that your country has suffered from very much. I was so sad some years ago when somebody was very rude to Amrullah Saleh in a conference here. I was very sorry also when I heard that the Pakistan president was very rude to Amrullah Saleh and your president didn't stop him. But this has to change. There has to be respect between people. I think I've said all I have some activities that I do. I write and I've started some cultural foundations. I believe ultimately maybe your country needs to change its name because it only represents a small part of the number of people that live there. My suggestion is it would be nice to call it Kalbe Asia because you are the heart of Asia. Some people think your country is a mess in the middle of Asia, but I think your country can and should be. Well, the most great poet in America came from your country. We call him Rumi. I'm not sure, I never remember his name. Rurana? You must be proud of your country. I also want to help Mr. Notre-Dame. He's aware of this. He told President Rabbani, just 2 weeks before he was killed, forget politics. We need culture. There's so much beauty in your country, so much beautiful culture. We have to find a way of bringing that to your own people so you're proud of your country and to the world. Reverend Moon, the founder of UPF, did that in Korea. He founded a children's dance group. And his members said, what are you doing? We're a religious group. Why do you want a children's dance group? He said, at that time, over 40 years ago, everybody thinks Korea's a mess. But my country's a beautiful country, and I want to show it to the world. My friend here came to see the little angels dancing, and he was really moved. But on the way back in the car, he was playing music from your country. And I loved that. We must give that to the world.